reseller friends, welcome to the latest edition of Seller's Corner, your go-to source for all things reselling. I'm Erynn from Vendoo, and today I'm talking about how to sell one of my favorite things, jewelry. But before I do, let me invite you to subscribe to our channel. We publish content all the time, and it's all related to Vendoo product tips, community updates, and information on how to scale and grow your resale business. I love selling jewelry, probably because I just love jewelry and it's super small and easy to store. There is a huge market for jewelry and you can make some serious cash selling it online. Whether you're selling fine jewels and diamonds, fun costume pieces, or handmade masterpieces, there is a place for all of that and a huge market. In this video, we'll talk about the different types of jewelry, the best marketplaces to sell jewelry online, and some extra tips and tricks on how to make the most cash on your pieces. In my opinion, the best place to sell jewelry is eBay. eBay is almost the best place to sell almost everything, simply because they're a massive global audience. Did you know that eBay has a larger audience than all of the other marketplaces combined? They have so many users and so many different categories of jewelry. So whether you're selling really fine, luxurious pieces, handmade pieces, vintage pieces, or modern costume, there are appropriate categories and subcategories for all of that. eBay is a great place to start because all of the information required in the listing is truly all of the information that you should be putting anywhere. You'll notice when you list an item on a piece of jewelry on eBay, there are so many specifics about the type, the stones, the metal, the size, the features. It gets really in-depth when we're talking about fine and luxurious jewelry. If I had a very valuable piece of luxurious jewelry, eBay is probably one of the only places that I would list it because their level of seller protection. Starting with eBay or even looking at the eBay listing form is a great place to start. Jewelry is one of their top sellers with watches as well, so you can also use eBay to research listing information, comps, and so much more. So definitely check out eBay. The second is Etsy, and this is especially if you're selling handmade pieces. In fact, the only items allowed on Etsy are handmade, made in collaboration with a production partner, which I'm going to categorize together, vintage, or even supplies. So if you have some jewelry making supplies, Etsy is a great place for those as well. But buyers shop Etsy for one-of-a-kind, handmade, and even personalized pieces. So if you're making your own jewelry, Etsy is the place to go. And don't forget that you can sell vintage jewelry there as well. There is a huge market for that. And I find that I can get a lot more for beautiful, unique vintage pieces on Etsy than I can a lot of other places. The third is Poshmark, and that's primarily for costume jewelry. Poshmark is all about the fashion. I sell a ton of jewelry on Poshmark. It's my top seller. Granted, I am not selling luxurious pieces. I'm selling fun costume pieces, and they fly there. Make sure you use style tags, and remember that your entire Poshmark description, like your title, is searchable. So we're going to use all of the keywords and info. Finally, there is Vestiaire Collective, and that again is for luxury and designer pieces. Vestiaire Collective is the largest pre-owned designer and luxury global powerhouse. And if you have some designer exquisite pieces, there's almost no better niched market to put them on. Buyers love Vestiaire. They have very strict condition requirements. They preview every listing before posting, and most sales go directly to Vestiaire for examination and authentication prior to going to the buyer. So for those reasons, buyers love and trust Vestiaire, and if you have qualifying pieces, that is a great place to list them today. This last one, it might surprise you, Depop. I sell a ton of jewelry and accessories on Depop, and I sell brandless jewelries for some serious prices because if you're familiar with Depop, you know that it is all about the style. These turquoise pieces that I have here are just vintage costume jewelry. As you can see, they're unbranded and they're nothing special. But modeling this piece with a cool pose like this will yield what I consider an insane profit for a brandless, simple item that would not yield that elsewhere. My favorite thing about Depop is that with the cool pictures, the right hashtags, you can sell anything to someone who doesn't care about the brand. They care about the look, the vibe, and the aesthetic. I have a ton of fun modeling pieces, sometimes really styling and going all out, and other times just taking a photo of the item on my wrist. It's just a great way if you're like me and don't have access to luxury, designer, expensive inventory to still have a really high sale price with inventory that wouldn't yield a really high sale price everywhere else. So definitely get your jewelry on Depop. Another cool thing about jewelry and accessories is they are mostly one size fits all. Rather than selling a pair of jeans that will only fit this waist size, this bracelet will fit almost everyone. Selling things like this opens and expands your buyer pool significantly. It's also so little to store and so inexpensive to ship no matter where in the world you're shipping it. I cannot advocate for selling jewelry enough. Let's talk about photographing jewelry. It can be really hard to get good photos of itsy bitsy teeny weeny little pieces of jewelry. So here are a few tips and supplies that I use. Note that all of the supplies I'm going to show you are fairly inexpensive, but you also don't need them. All you need is a steady hand and some lighting, natural or artificial. You will want to make sure that if there is any writing in the jewelry, like if we're talking about a fine ring with writing or a stamp inside, that can be difficult to photograph with just a phone. So it will require you to hold the phone extremely still and zoom with extreme certainties for those images to be legible. But here's a couple other things I do to just help get better pictures of jewelry. The first is the simplest, modeling. Remember when I talked about this bracelet? Rather than worrying about a clean background and well-lit photos and anything else I'm going to show you, the easiest thing to do would be to hold my arm against this wall and take a photo. Modeled photos help to show style. It can really help to sell your items. If modeling isn't for you or you don't believe it's easier, here are some other things that I often do. This is a mini light box. I think this was like $16. I'll link it below. It has LED lighting, it plugs in with a phone charger, and it lights the items on all sides. I even have different backgrounds, though I generally use the white one. This helps me to really get photos, great photos of these images without the harsh glare or overexposure that might be caused by my ring lights. So I love this. Another thing that I often do is I use little jewelry stands. These make the cleanest aesthetic. It's tough to necessarily flat lay some pieces of jewelry, so I have these super inexpensive acrylic little stands that I put either against the white wall or right in the light box that helps me to capture flawless images. They're clear, so when you adjust to the exposure or brightness or contrast on your photos, they're not heavily implicated by the clear stand. Another alternative is this. This is just a coaster. It's super classy to take really chic looking photos of jewelry on. You could really use any coaster. I often use the matte side because taking photos on matte surfaces is really the key to not getting glare. And similarly, I have some mini flat lay masks. These are also super inexpensive on Amazon. I often use this plain marbled one. Now again, this is matte. I just put it down and photograph right above. It takes flawless images, and background's important with jewelry. While you might be using a background remover with clothing or other items, you often cannot use a background remover with jewelry. If I were to lay a necklace like this flat, Most photo editing softwares would not be able to detect what's the subject and what's the background and get inside every nook and cranny. So it's extra important with jewelry to just get the great photo with the great background right at the beginning. But you don't need all this fancy equipment, though it is expensive if you sell a lot of it. You really just need a nice clean surface, ideally a lightly colored one. Let's talk about what to photograph. And just like clothing, it's literally everything. Every single surface, and you really want those zoomed in photographs to show that things don't have scratches or imperfection. It can be really tough if you're using the phone's camera to really get clear zoomed in photos. I recommend using a phone stand because the slightest movement of your hand, which we all do, will cause for distorted images. If you do have a camera, cameras do take better photos than phones. We often don't notice with clothing because our phones do really well, but when you're really trying to zoom in on the details of small objects, you will see that it can be difficult. Let's talk about describing jewelry because there are so many opportunities for search engine optimization in your jewelry description. At an absolute minimum, what you should include is what it is, the style type and features, the material composition, descriptions of any stones and gems, the type of metal, and of course, trending hashtags and keywords. Now, this is particularly important if you are selling fine jewelry. The more detail, the better in those listings. I would also include any proof of authentication, any proof of purchase, any original packaging that you have in that case. But even if you're just selling something trendy and cute, you would be surprised how many listings for necklaces don't include the word necklace. That sounds like a basic, and it is, but that's why it is overlooked. I promise you that buyers searching for a necklace are going to be using the word necklace. But what if it is a necklace? What is it? Is it a choker? Is it a locket? Is it a long chain? Is it a bib? Does it have stones? You want to include all of this type of characterizing information. If it has an official title from the manufacturer, so if it's a specific Pandora wishbone ring, you want to include that specific title as well because buyers are looking for it. Material composition's a really important one too, especially because a lot of buyers are looking for fine jewelry. They're looking for real metals. They're looking for gold and sterling silver, or at the very least, they're looking for something that likely will not turn their skin green. So even if it's surgical steel, no matter what it is, if you know it, you should be including it. Similarly with stones, if it is fine jewelry and it has a specific stone, as much detail as you can. Now, stones and metals are something that you want to be careful of because these are gold earrings, but they are not gold. They are not the valuable material gold. So be careful with that. Be careful of the way you describe gold earrings. You'll see a lot of resellers use gold tone. I use gold and then I use gold tone, and I also put a note in my description. Note, this is costume jewelry. It does not have fine metals or stones. So you want to be super careful with if you're calling something diamond that's a rhinestone, calling something gold that's gold tone. You want to include all the words, but you want to be super careful with your description so that it is accurate. Let's talk about authentication. What if you have come upon jewelry and you don't know if it's a real diamond and you don't know if the stones are genuine? Here's a few things that you can do. First, you can take that jewelry right to your local jeweler. Every jeweler has a stone tester and they can examine it. I recommend going to a mom and pop family business rather than a commercial jeweler because they don't have a free obligation to give the public jewelry authentication. Another excellent alternative is a pawn store. You could go to a pawn or consignment shop and see what they would take for the jewelry. They will likely perform testing on the stones and metal themselves to come up with a price. Now, if you like that price, you've just sold your item and you can skip selling online. Be mindful that they are resellers as well. So they are likely offering you a price that is significantly lower than what they expect to yield. So that will give you a very good idea of its authenticity and of its subjective worth. Make sure that you, if you're selling really fine jewelry, have it authenticated at a jeweler or shop where you can receive documentation of that in the event of a claim so that you can prove that your items are authentic. And finally, this tip is more so for costume jewelry than it is for the luxury and the diamonds. Don't forget your style tags. Let's come back to this bracelet. This bracelet is very 90s. It's very Phoebe Buffet. It's turquoise. It's very Southwestern. It is vintage. It is retro. These are all terms that people are looking for. If your jewelry fits with a trending style, core, or aesthetic, if it's minimalist, if it's flashy, if it's vibrant, use those adjectives because buyers search that way. If I go on any resale platform and search for necklace, I am going to get such an overwhelming amount of results. So me as a buyer will have to find a way to narrow down my search. So maybe I will look up gold necklace. Maybe I will narrow it down to gold bib necklace. Maybe I will narrow it down to gold dainty. Think like a buyer and make sure that your descriptions and titles have the words that you would search if you were looking for your item. And not just your brain, because we know how to describe items a way the average shopper might not. Think about the average shopper that maybe doesn't have such an enhanced understanding of all of the adjectives, colorways, and descriptive words that we do. If you found this helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. We have actually published an entire blog of a reseller's guide to jewelry that includes detailed information and so much more. I will link that below. Be sure to check it out. And I've also linked another video of me using a lot of my jewelry props for tips on how to sell jewelry more efficiently. I'll see you next time, reseller friends. Thanks for watching.